down my boat!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Canadian Redneck Channel. My name's Dave and today we're going to be rebuilding the steering box from a B414 International. Same steering box as a B275 or late B250 International, and it's a very similar steering box to any other worm and sector style steering box. I'll get the camera set so you can see what I'm working at and we'll get started. First thing I did was clean all the grease off because this thing was absolutely filthy. And then we take the bolts out of the side plate so that we can get the sector shaft out. With the last bolt out, we can remove the side cover. You can see it's pretty greasy and slimy in there. I would say the seals went bad, and instead of gear oil they put regular gun grease in it. These boxes, usually the ball bearings on the worm shaft wear out, fall apart. In this case they're not bad, but the bushings on the sector shaft across through are worn and that shaft was wobbling and binding. Worm shaft comes out the bottom of the box here. There we go. There's the old bearing and race. And you want to check out the bearing surfaces, top and bottom of the shaft. On the bottom of this one isn't bad. And actually the bearing surface on the top isn't bad either. It's got some chips and pitting around here, but not actually where the sector shafts run, so that would be a usable worm shaft. The repair kit I'm using for this has shims for the steering shaft, new seal for the sector, has the bushings for the sector shaft, and bearings and races for the worm shaft. And it's a very good kit. It's put out by Sparex of England. I've removed the old bushings from the box. We're ready now to put the new bushings in. I got a seal and bearing driver just slightly larger than the bushing, and I guess I'll lay this down on its flat. Alright, and that should drive in nicely. Go. Now we can put our seal in here. I didn't bother replacing the race up on the top of the box in this case because it actually was in really good shape, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, so there's not much sense if it is nothing wrong with it. But we have new bearings all around for it, that they just sit down over the shaft and sit on the top of the shaft. The top of the shaft either end is the race for the bearing. It was one race, and then the other race is in the box. Put that up into place. Now we fit the bottom bearing and race. Now, since you've put new bearings on the shaft, you're going to need more shims than what had come out, and this kit comes with new shims for the box. So You most likely won't need all of them because the box, you know, all the pieces in there are worn. Pick a few, put in there, and be careful when you tighten your bolts. You don't want to over tighten them and jam your bearings. And to get started, until you get everything shimmed up properly, I just put 2 opposite corners and snug them up carefully to get our proper clearance. And what we test is the shaft should roll free with no wiggle or play. I would say I could use, I think I put 2 fairly thick ones in. I should take one of the thick ones out and put in a little thinner one, or actually there's a light brass shim stuck to the bottom plate. Okay, that's got that set up right. The bearings roll nice and free, smooth as glass, and there's no play in the shaft, no wiggle at all. So you just gotta kind of go trial and error, find out how many shims you need or don't need. In this case, it's down to 1 fairly thick shim in there. Now we can put in our sector shaft and get it set. It's nice and tight, there's no wiggle on that shaft. That was the problem with the box. It was the sector shaft through was binding in the box. The bushings were shot. So we got them fixed, and now the shaft turns the way it's supposed to. Before we put the final cover plate on, we'll want to loosen up this lock nut on the jam screw. You want to back off the screw to make sure there's all kinds of room. There should be in this one because that's set pretty deep, but then you tighten that screw up afterwards. With our plate in place, we can now adjust the binding screw here that adjusts the end play on the sector shaft. You want the sector shaft to be in there snug. You want this to just kind of snug up against the sector shaft so it can't move back and forth, but you don't want it so tight that it binds in the worm shaft. And right there, yeah, that's kind of putting a little too much pressure on. We just back that off a little bit. There we go. That rolls nice and smooth. And it's got maybe 2 to 5 thousandths end play. You can just barely feel it. That's just about perfect. So then we tighten up our locking nut, and the box then would be ready to put gear oil in. That concludes our video on how to rebuild a 414 steering box. All the principles apply to any worm and sector type box, all the basic setup and so on. Hope you've enjoyed the video, found it useful. As always, like, subscribe, share, leave your comment in the comment section below. And if there's anything you'd like to see, let me know and I'll see if I can make it happen. Have a great day.